Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Leeds meeting on Sunday, 6 o'clock Colombo time. And today, I'll go straight to the topic. We're going to talk about a progressive and sustainable energy policy for Sri Lanka's future. And this presentation will be done by a senior engineer who is well known, Parakrama Jayasinghe. Now, I have to explain a little bit why I picked up this topic at this point when everybody's talking about elections. But there's a big connectivity between this and what's going to happen to us in Sri Lanka. And that is why I thought it's best to talk about this. Now, Parakrama actually published an article about a month ago in the island saying energy is people's property, time to claim our share. Now, this is most important topic in general as well. Nationals' assets are people's property. It's not rulers' private property. That everybody has to understand. So let's go beyond that, but go a little bit slightly to the lateral thinking and then try to work out why it's so important. Now, we had a debt crisis in 2022, and the foreign debt restructuring has taken place just last month in July 2024. We have no haircut, means no reduction in the amount of that is due to pay. That's that we are going to discuss at a later time. So debt total in this time is December 22, 11.2 billion. Now the deal is for the creditor to get it returned with additional 67p. So at 67% kind of interest at the end of the day. And that's for bilateral debt that is there. Then bondholders, this is a different kind of debt that we have again. The baseline deal is that the 12.6 billion we have in debt, pay with additional 80p. So that's more than what we have. We are paying 80% more than what we actually got as the loan. But that is only if our economic status was not that good. Means we are unable, we have not worked well to get our economy right before we pay this. So this is, if we are still like Somalia, for example, then we will still have to pay this. But if the economy grows and if we work out, then the return has to be 98p per dollar that we got back. So almost double the amount that we have taken as loan, we have to repay back. Now, what is crucial to see is these repayments that's coming is going to be more than 25% of the government revenue. So in other words, whatever the government that comes in 2028 will have to borrow more money to repay this. Now, that's where our crunch comes in. That is why I'm showing this picture. We had economic storm in 2022, and we are now in a lull period. And in 2028, we're completely going to disappear if we don't do something. That's going to be enormous. So why is this? Now, we have debt repayments coming in until 2022. And at the moment, we are not paying any debt repayments at all. In other words, we should really behave like a more developed country with no loans, but that's not seen in the ground for whatever the reason. So if we have to face the storm that's coming in 2028, that's where the debt repayment to be, say, several times higher than what we were doing. Then we really have to increase our productivity, enhance skill training, enhance job opportunities, etc., so that we as a nation will be generating more money. But to do that, we have to reduce wastage. Wastage means just not the food and other things, but really like political wastage that we have to reduce, like unnecessary number of ministries, whatever, duty-free cars, the whole lot, and eliminate political corruption. Sampurem, eliminate totally political corruption. We have discussed what political corruption means before. Now, if we want to do that, what is more important is that's where the energy factor comes in. Now, if you want to do all this, energy is crucial. Why is it crucial? At the moment, our energy is very expensive, too expensive in Sri Lanka. Fossil fuel, that means oil and coal dependence is still there for about 53% of our energy requirement. And basically, we are importing oil and coal for the profit of the people who are selling it. And then we expect to be productive with that expensive energy resource. And then that's not going to be possible at all. So that is why, and also it contributes to increased cost of living. And energy, cost of energy is one of the most important factors that determine whether the investors will come into our country. If we have very high cost of energy, nobody is going to come in like what is happening now. So it repels investors. So this is why the energy topic is becomes so relevant for us. So what we have to do is to consider increasing the GDP as much as possible during the next 4 years if we are to effectively face the storm that is coming in 2028. So this is why a new paradigm is needed, and energy sector has to be a Sri Lankan industry, and the power generation with indigenous resources by Sri Lankans enhances and supports the GDP growth. This is the topic that we are focusing on. Basically, like every rooftop of a house becomes a power plant, every garden an energy plantation, and the consumer become a productive as well as a consumer at the same time. This was also found in Jiva Bal Shaksi publication, which I looked at. This is why now the Parakrami's talk becomes so relevant. And he's a very senior engineer. He's been working on this for years on energy factor. He's been talking about this. And Parakrama, I'm glad that you are here. So I'll stop here and let you get on with your talk. Thank you. I've given the reference.
So I'm very happy that Chula has really done the groundwork for me and really gave me the opening on what I intend to talk. You see, energy is at the bottom of, I don't know, at the core of everything. So that is why we have to now take a very close look at what we are doing in Sri Lanka. And I must say that I'm able to say this, it belongs to us and all that sort of thing, because of the changes that happened over the past, I would say, few years, not longer than that, really. Because all of a sudden, renewable energy became the cheapest option. And the fact that renewable energy belonging to us became very viable, both technically and financially. So a few years ago, when we were talking about solar energy and all that, people used to laugh at you, saying that that's never going to happen. It's so expensive, so don't even talk about it. Fortunately, now nobody's dare say that. In Sri Lanka, as well as in many countries abroad, it is well proven that the cheapest form of energy is renewable energy. Now, I'll explain a little later as we go along, but Sri Lanka is uniquely placed to do this. But the primary sources of that renewable energy, like wind and solar, and even biomass, which I'm very closely associated with, are essentially people's property. You see, it's public goods, as it were. So definitely, I'm now entitled to say this, that it belongs to the people, and we should now start making a stake on it. Once more, again, because of the events that happened over the recent past, we can also say this one in a confident manner. Also, particularly for a country like Sri Lanka, as it for many others, the sun is the source of all the forms of energy, including what makes the plants grow. That energy also comes from the sun. If you take it further, if you like, even nuclear energy is there because of the sun. Of course, in that respect, you might also say the other fossil fuels are also because of the sun, but then they were formed millions of years ago. And we are just consuming what was accumulated over. So therefore, it is for us to make sure that we make use of the bounty of nature, which nature has been very, very generous in endowing Sri Lanka with a huge amount of that resource. Recent studies done by the Sustainable Energy Authority says we have solar energy equivalent of about over 100,000 megawatts, and wind energy also, even onshore wind energy of that kind of nature. And of course, there's a much bigger resource out there in the offshore. But also, as I would explain a little later, we must also look at the other very important resource, which is already technically proven and commercially proven, which is bioenergy, because it has a huge amount of spin-off benefits to the economy and the people. I will explain that later as we go along. So these are the basic facts we have to bear in mind when we are talking about energy for the future for Sri Lanka. So that's why I want to say that any future energy policy cannot ignore this one. So this is the basic change we would like to see happen. Power for the people, by the people. It's not mine, it's Dr. Ray Vijayawardena who used to coin this phrase. And also, of course, what we are pursuing now is to make energy a consumer's business, not the business of a few up there who have laid claim for it all these years, and also, use the policies and whatever the regulations to their benefit to make sure that they gain from it and hardly anything goes down to the people. You see, so that is the change that can happen and should happen and is possible to make it happen. So that is what we need to be looking at in a bit more detail. As for rest of the world also, we have been trapped in this what is called the fossil fuel blip. You see, fossil fuels came into being only a couple of 100 years ago, and it will, if we can continue to consume like this one, it will be over also. Even if it is not finished, the resource is not finished, there are other reasons why we should not be looking at it as a continuous source of energy for us. Because as they say, the Stone Age ended not because we ran out of stones, but other factors coming in. And right now, the biggest factor is, of course, the climate change. And for Sri Lanka, right now, even if you could argue otherwise a couple of decades ago, right now, there are absolutely no reason for us to be depending on fossil fuels, which we don't have. We have a big story of gas and oil in Mena. I don't know whether it will come along at any time. But even if it does come along, we should be looking at it in an entire different way, not as a source of energy for the Sri Lankan consumption, for which we have enough and more of renewable energy, which are now proven to be viable. So what is happening right now that Chula touched upon, we have a huge burden of energy imports. It's an order of something like $5 billion a year. It goes up and down a little. Right now it's on the way up because, as you know, oil prices are going up. I don't know, coal prices are not so bad, right? But that is what is happening. And the change we must make sure happens is this, convert that one. So that it is the people of the country who provide that energy, right? Either through solar and wind. Also, this was done at the time when we are promoting bioenergy so much. The source of bioenergy is with the people. So they are the suppliers of that resource for power generation or anything else. If you do that one, what we are looking at is that prospect of saving that $5,000 billion. You see, talking about balance of payments and all that sort of thing. It won't happen overnight, but that's the way we need to go. For the reason that Chula very detailed in very detail explained why we should be doing it. We are living a myth right now, thinking that we are now stable, we have stabilized the economy and debt restructuring is going on, you know what is actually happening. You know, deceiving the people once more, and people unfortunately are continuing to be deceived. We are not solved anything. We are just postponed the problem. And right now, everything is hunky-dory because we are not paying any of our debts, which we have to start paying sooner than later. And we are just passing that burden. Now, why I'm talking about this is this resource that we do have is the passport to that. Is the magic card for which we can use to make sure we now raise our heads and gain some dignity for the country rather than being all the time called bankrupt and all that sort of thing. Nobody wants to look at it and all that kind of thing. I'm, very, very sort of upset by that kind of situation. Even for people who have went and said that we are bankrupt, without, taking least trouble to see what we can do about it. Anyway, that's history. But right now, we can't wait till those people do the change. It is for us to make that change, for which energy is the tool. It is a tool available for us. And we have proven already in many number of ways that it is the resource that we can tap, and we don't have to wait until the government or the higher authorities do this one. It is now in the purview of what is called the prosumers. I'll give you more details as we go along. If you do that one, we are changing this picture of a huge burden into a big boon, which we will earn. We will save that foreign exchange, and also there's a very distinct possibility of earning foreign exchange. Easiest one, which can be done shortly, is through carbon credits. We never got any much benefit out of it in the last cycle, but then that topic is now already opened again. Hopefully this time we'll handle it right. Yeah, right. Now, why am I saying this? Recent events which happened pointed the way that this is now really possible. Now, I'll show you some charts later. You remember last year we had, lots of rain, particularly in the October, September, October period or October, November period. We had lots of rain and the reservoirs are running full. And there were days we did generate all our electricity without using any oil. We continue to use coal, all right. But there were days when we did not use any oil at all. That was a huge gain, not by design, but again by the bounty of nature, right? But nobody took notice of it and say, now, this is a scenario that we must somehow try to emulate and continue through the year, not only during the heavy rainy months, but why can't we make that happen throughout the year? Now, before coming to how we can be done, I'm just showing you two charts. One is the base case, what they predicted is the requirement for 2024. This was presented by the DGM of the CEB at a parliamentary subcommittee meeting. I was present, and they said this is their budget, something like 672 billion rupees to be spent, and also average cost without the transmission and other things are 482. I did a little study to see what does it mean. What does it mean if we manage to remove at least the hydro done by the private sector, right? No, actually, the thermal complex is also sorry, not hydro, oil. Use of oil, if we bring it to zero, and we replace it with that amount of deficit from renewable energy, and plus one more thing, you will see this minus 300. Oops, sorry, what am I doing? Right, that's a very important number. That is by demand side management. That is nobody's baby right now. Nobody pays the least attention to that one. And that is the least, the fastest way of making a saving. Simple thing of just making sure everybody uses LEDs only and not anything else. But that's a small amount, which you might say. But what we are required to do is to, of course, replace that 1,994 megawatts of oil-based power generation by other means. We are keeping the coal as it is for the time being, but other ones, we'll have to make sure now private thermal is also there. That also we have to reduce, and that had been replaced by what are the options? Rooftop solar and private NCRT. NCRT is, you might know, non-conventional renewable energy, which includes wind energy, bioenergy, and all that sort of thing, right? Now, there's not a big change. You see, private NCRT 2,100, and we want to just take it up to 3,300 gigawatt hours, right? Now, if you do this change, which I believe can be done even within a year, right, or maximum 2 years, the saving to CEB will be like 113 billion. Now, that is a rupee saving to CEB. But at the same time, that means a real dent in the amount of dollars we spend for import of oil. Now, these numbers were made sometime early of the year, but looking at the generation plan of the CEB day by day, massive amount of oil is being used now. Even now, when the rains have started, during months of March, April, May kind of thing, it was huge. Nobody declared how much money is being spent. You see, the amount of expenditure predicted, this one I'm sure has been exceeded much more, right? But of course, there have been a lot more renewable energy also coming in, particularly solar, rooftop solar. We have managed to do quite a lot of that one. Therefore, CEB is still managing it. Of course, they bumped up the tariff hugely and reduced a little bit, you know. You made it about 300% increase and maybe 25% or something like that, 15% reduction. Leave that aside. But primarily what I'm looking at, why can't we make sure we can gain that 113 billion saving? Because we did show that we can run without oil. Now, the difference is that time there was a lot of rain. Everybody knows there's not enough rain during the early months of the year. But why that's a time that the sun shines the brightest and no cloud covers. If anybody had any kind of sense and the national policy was in that line, they should have been running high and low how to make sure that happens. You see, that unfortunately did not happen. Now I'm trying to see, this one is little right. See, what does it mean? The current status in 2023 and what is there and what is required. So what is required if you take rooftop, required 1,500. It was 825. I'm happy to say that 825 now gone to about 1,100 megawatts. You know, few months early, these things, it really went up. So getting that additional 1,500, I'm sure can be done in maximum 2 years, right? So if you do that, and similarly, ground-mounted, of course, going at a slower rate, so the prediction is much less. Mini hydro also is a small amount. Main input that can come is from rooftop solar. You see, now, you know, there's a big controversy going on regarding the wind. So there might be delays in some wind plants coming out. But in parallel, although this Adani case is going on, there are other smaller projects which are being constructed at the moment. So even the 250 is not so daunting. Right, and I have just predicted, you know, we should have 10 million LED bulbs brought in and given at fair cost. Right now, the cost of a LED bulb in the supermarket you go and see is about, I should say, at least 4 or 5 times what it should be. Now, CEB floated a tender to get something like 10 million bulbs, and that was approved, but nobody knows what happened to that price. That price was, like what I'm saying, maybe 1/5 of the price that is being sold at in the supermarkets or the shops. Now, why can't anybody take a look at that one, make a change? You know, that's a huge contribution that can make, and people will pay for that. You don't have to give it free to the people. People will pay a fair price. So then it doesn't require cost to anybody. But the saving is enormous. Now, these are the ways that we should be looking at our energy policy in the future. That's the theme of my lecture today, and also what I wrote in the newspaper. I also took the trouble to write out policy initiatives, list of policy initiatives that must be there, which I want to share with all the contenders for the presidency. One or two I have already said. I'll share that, Chula, with in your web also for you to comment on. But unless we do that one, we will be kicking this opportunity again by making all sorts of bad decisions, trying to give it away to the foreigners, our resource, at, give away sort of very massive prices. Now, the Adani case was taken up with the courts, and it have been will be heard in October or something like that one, the human rights case. There's another project like that one, totally unsolicited, which cannot be supported even like that Adani thing, by Australians who put a 700 megawatt solar project, right? And also unknown cost, unknown tariff, all that sort of thing, totally against the laid down procedure. So fortunately, that also might get cancelled because he didn't come up with the money at least for the provisional approval. They had to pay a certain amount of this thing. There's a lot of stories. I don't want to go to that one, hoping that it will not materialize. Now, what I'm talking about, these additions are all totally doable locally. And we have shown that. Can do that kind of power projects by local people using money locally. Some of the people might have got some assistance from foreign agencies. It doesn't matter. Let them go through with that assistance privately, not by selling our asset to foreigners, just saying that we have need foreign exchange for that. We do foreign exchange for this one, unfortunately, because we have to buy the equipment, but that's a one-time expenditure. As against, every year we go on paying for oil and coal, which we have to pay in dollars at unknown prices. And right now, it's very scary what the price of oil is going to be, whether it'll go up to $150 like it happened one time earlier. Even if it doesn't, why should we pay for something we don't need? Because we have the alternate resources. Now, I'm going to show you, even in January, the first picture shows the amount of oil, both CEB and thermal, was very minute, right? In October, it came to zero, right? But then what happened 2 months later, of course, it bumped up because of the dry season, you see? So the solar hydro potential dropped down. It was picked up by oil and coal. Stupid. There's no other word for it. You see? They are running blind without taking any sort of logical approach to this one. Say, why don't we try and make sure that we don't have to depend on that? You see, the dependence of the import of fossil fuel is the reason why we are in this trouble. All the other these things emanate from this one. Our continuing to drain that $5 billion every year. When sometimes the deficit is only $2 billion. But if you have that $5 billion saved, then we have a surplus. I don't know. I mean, this is very difficult to understand how their mindsets work. I always say they can't do even simple arithmetic, let alone economics. Right. Now, this is the way, the little bit of rain of sunshine. This is what we were predicting could happen. And it is happening that way. You see, because we have passed the 1,000 megawatt target in 2024, halfway through. So we'll end up, there are some moves going on to try to deter that. Hopefully we can fight that one. If they don't do that, because there's a added advantage that the solar prices have come down now, so that is affordable to anybody. You see, practically anybody. I'll show you a chart later on. Anybody consuming something like 200 units per month has certainly a potential for putting his own rooftop and earn some money to over and above what he saves in the electricity bill, and making a great contribution to the country, because excess energy he generates will reduce that equivalent amount of oil-based generation. That's a big help they can make by while making a good economic decision themselves, right? So now we are hoping that we can continue this momentum. And what we would like to see is, now we are talking about the 20, 30, 70% and all that. We should aim to get at least 3,000, 4,000 megawatts of rooftop solar. That is the lowest hanging fruit. It can be handled mainly by the consumer themselves, and that absolutely no cost to the government. The government doesn't have to do anything. Now, other countries give huge what do you call, subsidies for solar. In India, some states give up to 70% capital subsidy. We don't get anything. We don't need anything, as long as they don't impose added burdens on us, like what they did, added VAT to solar imports in January, which was totally uncalled for. Just to mention that one, what they hope to earn by that 18% VAT. I was just doing a comparison for something like 50 megawatts of solar, is something like $880 million. Just one time, say, earning. But what we are replacing is the equivalent amount of oil-based generation. If you cost that one now, every year, we'll be saving $2,100 every year for the next 20 years. This is arithmetic they can't do. That's our tragedy. Anyway, what to do? Right. Now, this is that example I want to show you. This is a detailed analysis of the electricity bills and the kind of money you have to spend to do rooftop solar. By the way, I am completely independent of the CEB, because I have my rooftop solar as well as I run an electric car. So therefore, I don't depend on either CEB or, of course, I'm linked to the grid because I use the grid as my sort of battery. But I am a net exporter of energy, right? So here, even at something like 120, 180 units consumption a month, this one, I don't know if you can see the last columns. That's the more important one. You see? There, that's better. So now you take the lowest one, 120. You put a 4 kilowatt rooftop solar, because you consume only 120, but you will generate on average 440 kilowatt hours a month. So you have a 320 available for export. Right? Now I calculated that at 27 rupees, because what was earlier even at 37, they are trying to lower it. We are fighting that case. So even at 27, right, you earn 8,400, right? So now his, what is called the equated monthly installment at 12% interest, which you can get from any of the banks now, right, over say 8-year payback or something like that, right? If you add the income and what he spends for the bill, you have a surplus of 1.86. That is your net earning for you. Having zeroed your bill, and also you are earning that amount, right? As you go along, this is the best investment in town. You see, I promote, a lot of people do at least a 5 kilowatt one, so that they'll earn a reasonable amount of money, in addition to being independent, not quite independent, but then being sort of self-sufficient on their own energy and earning some money, which otherwise would have been used in dollars to pay for the oil. You see, that's a simple fact. So this is what we really must promote, because that has been God-given. I'm not, we don't believe in God, but believe in nature. This is what nature is given to us. We are not using it. You see, there's a little mistake here. I must correct that one. You see, this 301 you see to be lower than the 200. There's a little mistake here. I have to correct that one, right? But the basic fact is, this is there, and this is there. People are earning. Now, of course, I put my solar long time ago, so I'm getting paid only 22 rupees. It will be lower to 15 in a couple of years' time. But now, last couple of years, CEB was paying 37 rupees and it's fixed for 20 years. You don't worry. It's best interest, best investment anybody can make. But this is not known widely enough, unfortunately. Right. So what I'm trying to point out is, all I'm predicting that change is possible. You see, the easiest one is rooftop solar. Then, of course, you can do ground-mounted solar. It's a little bit of a process. It takes all sorts of approvals are needed. And, of course, the tariff is also lower. But there are issues, finding the land and all that. But still, it can be done. So that's why, predicted only a much smaller amount of ground-mounted solar and wind together. But I'm being rather conservative. I think it could be a lot more than that one, right? We don't have to go looking for other, we are talking about wave energy, we are talking about geothermal energy, all kinds of things. They are true, they are sources of energy. But why go for that one when these are so easy sources that we can tap anytime, right? Now, I just took extract of that one. What happens, you see? I am assuming they put a 20% equity and the 80% comes from the bank, right? So everybody starts earning money from day one. Once the loan is settled, it bumps up so much because there are no loan installment. Can you imagine? You are getting 12,000 rupees for the lowest license as a consumer. Where can you get some money like that? Right? Now, I'm doing another exercise. How can we do it for the lower end? Say 30 to 120. Most of them are some of the recipients or us as recipients. Our government is paying 2,500 rupees per person. If you can get some kind of green funding to make sure that their capital cost is looked after on a very reasonable basis, then of course that 2,500 they'll earn through this one rather than the government having to dish out money from other people. This kind of simple thinking is there. Now, there's at long last, the Green Carbon Fund has accredited DFCC as a financial institution in Sri Lanka. So he can operate through that. I'm talking with them also to how to structure this. If they can give us part grant and part low interest loans, this is piece of cake. Now, important thing is this should be done by Sri Lankans. And we have proven that we can do it because we have about 400 companies registered with the Sustainable Energy Authority. And we have about 12,000 people already employed in that one. We are trying to train more and more people to take this one. That 12,000 can be 100,000. You see, highly skilled technical jobs, right? Of course, thinking further along, we should also think in terms of starting a facility to manufacture the solar panels also without having to buy them all the time. I would say even now, I throw this challenge to our electrical people to start manufacturing the inverters. I'm glad to see that the Vega people are started on that one. So that again is a local industry that we can do. You see, the knowledge is available, no problem about that one. It is the confidence that must be given. That's why I'm talking about policy. The policy must have a target saying that, okay, from year 27 or 2030 even, we will be manufacturing our own solar panels and the inverters. So that even the initial drain on foreign exchange can be reduced. These are easily done. These are not magic to be performed, but by reasonable economic decisions and policies, unwavering policies. You see, now the recent attempt to lower the tariff from 37 to 27 is looking at very insular way of the CEB and the ministry only. They are not able to look at the total big picture. How does it affect the country? Fortunately, this is unbelievable to me. This time, the Ministry of Finance, Secretary, Ministry of Finance, who happens to be the President himself, sent observation to that cabinet paper saying, don't do this. They said at least till 2030, let the 37 remain because it has an impact on our ability to reach that 70% target. Very sensible thinking. But in spite of that, I don't know how this cabinet system works. Cabinet is insisted on lowering it. Fortunately, PUCSL is objecting to that one, saying that this is not looked at in a proper manner. So hopefully we can go on that way and keep the 37, which will guarantee at least 1,000 megawatts during the next 12 months. I can guarantee that it will happen. Because CEB also did one very good thing. As you might know, our rooftop solar systems are governed by what is called the Surya Bala Sangrame, which has three elements, three pathways. One is the original system of net metering, where you export, you are trying to generate enough for your consumption, and even if you export some excess, it is only banked. There are no financial transactions. Then they added very, very good system called net accounting, like what I am using. Whatever excess that I export, I get paid at a certain rate. That was 22 rupees. Now that is the 37 rupees that they approved in October last year, right? So that made a boom. I mean, in that chart I showed you, you show the exponential growth from about 22, 23 onwards. That was because of that tariff. That is the only concession or the facilitation or the incentive that the government has given to us. Now again, recently CEB also made a very, very major decision. Earlier, the amount of rooftop solar that you are allowed to put in was governed by what is called the contract demand. So that way, for a single phase house, they'll allow only 5 kilowatts. For a three phase 30 amp, they can go up to about 20, 23. But if you take the places like the warehouses, the supermarkets, where their consumption is low, but they have huge amount of roof space. They were not allowed to put in the rooftop solar compatible with their roof space because it was limited by 90% of their consumption. Fortunately, they removed that. Fantastic move. I must take my hat off to whoever made that decision. That created that boom also. Because then we are talking about megawatt level rooftops, unless my 10 kilowatts or most people having 5 kilowatts. We are now talking about megawatt range. There was yet another very positive decision where you can, the owner of a large building may not have the wherewithal to go up and put up a solar system. So they made another provision called Net Plus Plus, where you can rent that roof. So that the building owner will get a rental from the investor, and the investor puts in the power plant. He puts up the money for that one. He might have a share with the warehouse owner. Also, not necessary. He can only need to give him some kind of deal, agreement saying that he'll rent the roof for this purpose. Fantastic move, right? So those are very positive things that happen. Unfortunately, there are a lot of negative things happen on the other side trying to bring down this one. Because you can understand why they want to do that one. If you do that one, we don't need to import oil anymore, at least for electricity, right? So that would hurt many people's pockets. So that is why all these efforts to knock down this one and sort of put barriers on our way. So we are fighting to continue to do that one. That is because this is now within the purview of the consumers. Now it is we, people like you and I, who can do that. So you don't have to be a big company or a government agency to do this one. It can be done by the smallest householder. Any person earning, I don't know, maybe 50, 60,000 rupees even can do that. Imagine you are a 50,000 rupee earner, you will get another 12,000 rupee added income, you see. So that's a massive, that is why I go back to what Chula said about the economy. This is very much linked to the economy. So this is where the energy sector should no longer be treated as on its own as just as a service to the other sectors of the economy, but it's a standalone economic activity by itself, right? So these are the changes that we hope to see. Right. The multiple benefits of prosumers, you see. Feasible even for the low consumption prosumers. Total insulation from the future tariff increases. They are not bothered about any further increases by the government. Net income even when paying loan installments. best investment in town. Now you can do the numbers and see, but this thing is definitely not more than the 8% fixed deposit rate amount that they will give you now, right? Each kilowatt hour, that is the most important thing as far as I'm concerned. 80 kilowatt hour of rooftop removes 1 kilowatt hour oil-based power. That's what they call the margin, the highest cost. The highest cost is about 150 rupees. I see sometimes they run that single cycle turbine and calculator, which costs 160 or something like that per unit. You see, because when they don't have enough power, they are pushing to use that one also, right? But otherwise, in general, the DGM said 62 rupees, but I think it's more like 80 rupees. So we must look at that 82 rupees and the 37 they are giving it. Not saying that 37 too much, the prices have come down, why should we pay so much? That is very stupid way of looking at the whole picture. Right. So if you look at the current impact of the 1,000 megawatts we have already done, we are generating 1,320 gigawatts of annual generation, which is at about 15,000 now, right? And we are, most important, $277 million in foreign exchange. And save the CEB, also 55 billion annually, because otherwise they would have had to buy oil at 68 rupees. Sorry. That's the reality. Those are the simple numbers. Now, I want to take a few minutes to talk about bioenergy. After all, that's my pet subject because I was the president of the Bioenergy Association for a number of years. I'm still in the council, want to see that happen, because that should be looked at in an entirely different way from just looking at energy. Energy is a very small fraction of that. And particularly, we are again blessed with, tree species like Grassroots, Ipilipil and all that, which are totally renewable and totally sustainable, right? And can grows anywhere. I mean, people, you might remember, wherever you go, you see Grassroots trees. So what we are saying is, let that tree become the means of providing the energy to the power grid also. It's not limited to that. And if you look at that one, it has a number of multiple effects. Fuel wood is just one line on that one. You see, you get employment, you get fodder for the animals, you get replacement of urea with the leaves, right? And we can make organic fertilizer, many, many interlinked things. More than anything, there is rural economic development, because we are all rural affairs. It's the rural farmer who will benefit because he's the one who will be supplying you the fuel. Immediately from that one, you start earning. And of course, the other benefits also go to the farmers, right? Look at, trying to put some numbers. Firm power, they're always grousing about solar and wind, saying this is variable, it's not firm power, they must have, they're talking about getting LNG for that, right? Can't imagine why. Because renewable power can give you firm power exceeding 80%. We have run plants at more than 85, 90%. Entirely indigenous source of fuel supply. Massive cash flow to the fuel economy, right? It's about every megawatt will pump in something like 80 million rupees a year to the rural economy. There's absolutely nothing else that can do that. And also it will change lots of social and environmental thing, because you are saving that amount of carbon, and also multiple job opportunities and variety of things. And not because of the power plant, but because of the value of the leaves also. It will support the livestock industry, it will support the farming, right? And this famous talk about organic fertilizer, you see the best way of doing that, you see that about 3% nitrogen in the leaves. All these are proven and known facts, right? So if we can get 100 megawatts of solar, we have about 50 megawatts of solar, but of dendro, but unfortunately some of them shut down because for years EV didn't pay. So they could not sustain it and they had to shut down, but few of them are restarting. We are looking at something like 8,000 million, equivalent of 23, I must check this number, parity, annually for fuel wood alone, right? Value of the milk that we would generate here instead of importing from Australia and New Zealand, something like 10 billion. And fertilizer also the same story. So that's why I'm saying it is much more valuable in that aspect than even the energy. But energy has the value of being a source of cash immediately, because the money flowing into the farmer in cash regularly is the driver for it. Then he will start looking at the other ways of getting better use of the leaves too. Right, that's what this same picture that Chula showed earlier. This is the conventional wisdom. You must have energy security, energy demand growth will be congruent with the GDP growth. All that is true. There are no question about it in conventional sense. But shouldn't we look at it in a different way? Like this is the picture that Chula showed. Our generation indigenous resources by Sri Lanka. That is most important. By Sri Lankans and using our own this thing. So that becomes another path of GDP growth entirely on its own. And we are now talking about the excess. What do we do with the excess? I don't like this story about getting a link to India. I can't see India buying our, our, our energy, electricity at 8 cents when they generate at 3 cents. You see? So that's a non-starter anyway. And on other grounds also, I don't like that idea at all. Right? But of course, there are other means. I'll not talk about those to make sure that our surplus can generate that kind of foreign exchange. That's what I said. It's going beyond our serving our own needs, but it's an entirely new industry, which has a very big potential for foreign exchange earning as well. Right. I think that's what I want to tell you. Things are happening. Now you see when we were running a dendro plant, there was a stream of vehicles coming in that plant there. Of course, we are still to reach that level of solar. We are having a fair amount of it. There are a number of projects which are now going on at about 25, 10 megawatts and up to 50 megawatt level. Not this 800 nonsense that they are talking about. It is happening. But of course, these people must get together. You see, CEB and the PUCSL and the SCA must get together. State and agriculture also must get in. We must now talk about linkage between agriculture and the energy. Fortunately, now they are talking about what is called agrovoltaics, as the solar panels, solar parks are also growing some certain products. You know, it's an important thing to do. So that will make a change in multiple use, right? So we are uniquely placed to attain sustainability of energy and also be a source of export earnings as well. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. You can put your slides down also, Parakrama.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that excellent presentation. Not only that, it's so relevant for Sri Lanka's recovery. And it's important that we also allow question and answers. But at the same time, I think you have a very good window of opportunity, Parakrama. And I think Dharma is also here who might contribute.
Yeah.
Because the negativity that comes from the CEB and everything else, it's all political corruption, because people who are benefiting from importing oil and burning oil are not going to have it. That's basically it. So now there's an election fever, and the people who are trying to earn are now trying to save themselves to get back into the same position. So we got a window of opportunity promoting solar and this very fast, particularly solar and LED bulbs. So I just wonder whether we can have a company or somebody who will agree to do it at the minimum cost and maybe with minimum profit, and then promote it, promote all the inverters. You said the inverters are being built, and maybe talk to a private bank and say whether they can fund it so that the incomes that's generated by excess power will at least go back to the bank first, so that they get repaid whatever, and then take it from there. I mean, it's a very good project. It's a good time to start as well. We can promote it. I mean, if you are happy with it, I don't know. I mean, you have to lead it in the sense what needs to be done, because I'm not aware. And some of the companies in Sri Lanka is doing quite well in the sense, like, for example, I went there about a month and a half ago, and then I was in Kandy, and I was told that Damro has got a fantastic after sales service, just like in a developed country, so that and you could see it. And so there are people who can collectively work together, and reliable suppliers, reliable bank, and a reliable installers, and with after sales service. Do you think we can work something out? I don't know. I mean, it's a very good opportunity as well, because the so-called people who are obstructing these things are no longer going to do it during these 3 or 4 months, and it's a good chance to get this going.
Yeah, right. Chula, actually, I've been working on those kind of lines. I've been talking to Dharmi also some time back. You see, our interest rates were high, right? Even recently, it was as high as 15%, which are not attractive. Of course, now it has come down to 12%. Of course, there are also the banks are still asking for some kind of security and collateral and all that. But I worked out a scheme where I don't know what the situation now in England is, where the cost of funds in a foreign country much lower. It was as low as 5-6% sometime back, right? I don't know what is the situation now.
But the
Now,
government
there is
in the, say, for example, UK, when they introduce solar as a renewable source, when the Ukraine war started, they started giving subsidies.
I know,
For
but
example, if you
yeah,
bought an electric car, you got
yeah,
$2,500 from the
I know.
government.
We work in the entirely opposite direction.
Yeah,
On
that
the
is because of
electric
the
cars.
political corruption. That's why.
Yeah. No, leave that. So I now my philosophy now, I look at what I can do in spite of the corruption of this thing, and then not dependent on it.
Exactly. I think
I
it's a very
am
good
I'm
project,
only
bottom up.
leveraging. I'm only leveraging on those very positive things which were provided under the Surya Bala Sangrama. Now they can't change. That is regulation is there, right? I'm leveraging on that one. So unfortunately, they were trying to lower this tariff. Even at 27, I do want to say this public, it is still viable. You see, I showed you that picture, right? So, but the scheme I worked out was that, okay, we attract even our own expatriates to invest on this one in dollars or pounds. You see, instead of going to our local bank and getting rupees, if somebody provides that funding through a local bank, not on the basis as a loan to the investor directly. I have proven this.
It's
I
a
have done
good
this
project.
myself.
If you
Right?
can give us some ideas and work
I
together.
will. I will. I write out a note on the what that this thing is. I send this one to a number of
Yeah.
places. In
If
fact,
you
I have
stop
tested
sharing the
it out.
slides, we'll be able to see everybody who is there as well. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I don't have the slide here at the moment now. Yeah, let me explain what we are talking about. So
Okay.
it is a case of somebody who would be getting only about 3-4% on their money in England or US can offer that even at 10% for the project. Don't go through the bank. That is given to the investor, and there is a scheme now available that money can be repatriated. Interest can be repatriated immediately from the first year itself, but the capital can be repatriated after 3 years in dollars. You follow? So that his investment is safe, and that will give a huge boon for anybody to do a reasonable size projects. You see, now the lower end thing, say 5 kilowatt or something, you don't need that one. But to leverage on that net plus and net plus plus, where you are talking about 250, 500, even a couple of megawatts of projects, needs a fair, reasonable amount of funding. And local banks are reluctant to give that kind of thing without a lot of collateral. So it is a bit of a hassle. But if, of course, it is one-to-one kind deals with somebody known to you, you work through maybe form another company locally here, you can have a share in that too to get the control, right? And the fund, the equity portion of that fund comes from abroad. For path is open for that one. Legal, everything regular path is available for that, right? So that's
Leeds
something
is
that,
actually, we are a charity now registered. So we can operate an account, although we have not started an account yet. But that is somewhere we can start this project totally.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It is possible. I mean, I'm saying it need not be charity. It can be a good business for who wants to get better return on his
Yeah. I
excess
mean, if you
funds.
get 10% back, that is good enough. I mean,
Yeah.
but for administration costs and everything, yeah. It's a very good opportunity at this time. And also it is a way of working ourselves out bottom up rather than depending on the politicians.
Exactly. Bottom up. That's the
Bottom up
equation.
method. And publicity, of course, I can get people to support it and then get
I will send you this note I prepared on this one so that you can decide with whom you can share it. You see?
Yeah. We'll have a small group working on it fast.
Yeah.
And then we'll be able to get it done within this election fever time. That is the main thing, so that the corruption is, those leaders are not more active, not less active.
We don't know who will come. That's the bigger problem.
That's okay. We can still go.
No. I am now sort of resigned to that situation. We have things we can do in spite of who is there on top.
Exactly.
That's the only way that we can move forward.
That's what it is. I think there'll be more people joining if we are really reliable and transparent.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Dharma is also there. I mean, we can ask questions from the others and then comments and so on. So we can carry on from here and maybe form a small group and get it started. Any questions or any comments?
Thank you, Jula. Could I make a comment and ask 2 questions, please? I have to go in 10 minutes. That's why I want to come first.
Just, okay, tell your comments. There's nobody else waiting, so you can do it,
First of all, thank you very much, Parakrama, for your nice presentation. You mentioned that when we started to talk in early 1990s, as a solar energy researcher, I can see through the future. When we talked, nobody believed in 1992. When I came with the HE Link program to Sri Lanka for conferences and working together, that is how I met you and Revi Jayawardena and people. We had only 3 very small solar companies in the country during that time when we started in 1992. But if we look at, we continuously promoted these renewables in different areas, and you can see the private sector has developed. Today we have about 90 solar companies in the country.
Much more.
I think more will come. More will come, yes. And obviously, the government was very difficult, not waking up at all, but we continuously promoted, and now they are waking up. But I can see with large projects like wind and solar, they are trying to get huge commissions out of that. As you mentioned, from wind, 8 cents rather than 3 cents. So where is that difference? The benefits are not going to people, they are going to few people's pockets. So this is the concern. But I think what we have to do, we have to keep going. People like you and me and many other people who believe in renewables, our indigenous energy, we have to keep going. In Sri Lanka, it is not top-down, it is bottoms-up approach. I think we are doing well, we have to do it. We will not stop that. So let us do properly and continuously. I want to ask 2 short questions. The first one is, you mentioned they are now paying 37 rupees per unit.
Yeah.
But I heard that they are now going to reduce that to 27. Is that definite?
Yeah, that is true. So we are fighting that one, Dharme, right? Fortunately, the PUCSL is supporting us. PUCSL has not approved that reduction. So we are hoping that we can leverage on that and maintain it. Strange, I mentioned this one. Strangely enough, the Minister of Finance has seen the reality of this one, has sent a note to the cabinet saying that don't do it. Keep the present one going till 2030. But the cabinet seemed to have ignored that, in spite of that Minister of Finance being the president himself. So something funny going on, you see. But we are trying to...
Rather than promoting, they are trying to put this down.
Oh, yes,
because,
of course.
I mean, in the UK in 2010, they said if you produce solar energy, we will give you 43.5 pence.
I know.
And that gave a huge kick. And we have more than 1 million solar roofs in this country. where is
Exactly.
the sun here? But in Sri Lanka, these people are trying to, demoralize the projects and
Eh,
cutting down 37 to 27 is not a good. Please go on fighting, and we should not allow them to do it. My second question is, we recently heard about the people have been selecting 6 sites for nuclear plants from Russia. What
Yes,
is
yes.
happening now? Could you update on this, please?
Well, they are still talking about it. Every time I get a chance, I tell them, you are idiots. You see, even recently I wrote on that one. But you see, now they have several principles which everybody is still accepting. Like, for instance, saying that we should be non-dependent on our energy on external sources. Now, nuclear means that we are dependent on anyway on the fuel to start with, and also what to do with the waste. Nobody talks about the waste. That is one principle. Other one is that we should be generated at the least economic cost. That is there in the act itself very clearly. So nuclear energy is going to be 5 times the cost of solar or anything else. So in spite of that, they're going on talking about it. And obviously, another deal. You see, somebody wants to make a buck out of it. So that's why they are pursuing that one. They have got a set of people in our nuclear agency, whatever you call the atomic energy agency, who think to justify their survival, they must somehow do this. Every instance, that fellow comes there and try to talk us into it. The other time also, I had to blast him saying that don't talk nonsense. I hope it will not happen. I think we can make sure it doesn't happen. You know, we can go to
We have not met all the requirements at the moment.
No, they can't. They can't.
No. And
So they
also,
can't.
they want us to accept nuclear waste.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That's not going to happen probably.
No,
We
definitely.
need to make
Moment
people
they-
aware of it. So anyway, thank you so much. It's very good. And Jivananda has also raised a hand. Yes, Jivananda.
Excellent talk, Parakrama. Congratulations. I have a question. I don't mean to take away the thunder of your talk, but I'm looking at the other end of the energy cycle, the consumption.
Yes.
Now, the fossil fuels contribute like 65% of the country's energy consumption.
Yeah,
And then out of that, 35%, 34.6% goes to transportation. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So then,
transportation takes a bigger chunk of it, actually.
yeah. So like, approximately 35%.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the transportation, the public versus private transportation, the private vehicles consume 71% of that.
Yes.
Whereas the buses consume, the public transportation combined consume only 14%.
Yes.
Freight consumes another 15%. So what I'm thinking is that, there is a huge imbalance in the consumption of this fossil fuel energy. For example, the average occupancy of a car, passenger vehicle, is 1.5 passengers. So, see, what I'm trying to say is that, there's a huge imbalance that 71% of the energy is used by the so-called 5% of the society, the top society, whereas the rest of the population, ordinary people, use only 15% of the cost, but the actual benefits, but they bear the cost equally. So are there any thinking?
Yeah, there is. Actually, that's a subject for entirely new, another talk.
Exactly. That's what I mean. I don't mean
very
to
much
take
so.
away from.
We are looking at it very deeply. And also people like Professor Sugatapal have got enormous amount of data on this one. You see, now that is again a window opportunity, which I've been trying hard to push. In the sense, we stopped import of vehicles, right? Because of the crisis, not because of any other reason. We didn't have the money, right? Yeah. And you see the amount of vehicles on the road is more than enough for us, right? But now they are trying to open that this thing now without paying our loans. They are trying to spend our foreign exchange to buy cars. You see? No, I have been trying to say, for God's sake, if you do that one, make sure it is only electric vehicles, nothing else. And out of that $5 billion drain, you are quite right, 75% goes for transport, right? But then electricity is the one that is easier to handle because we have made the inroads into it already. That's why I'm talking more about that one. The next extension is you put up your rooftop solar and buy a EV also, so that you are not dependent on the CPC as well, which I am doing. You see, now that's a more difficult change, but it is a change that must happen. We have been promoting EVs, and personally, I'd like to see an entire industry coming up where we are converting our existing fleet of light vehicles into electricity. You know, it will be done now. In fact, Vega people are already done for three-wheelers already, and David Peters have done it already for that one.
Yeah.
There are
That's the way to
electrical
go.
three-wheelers now in Sri Lanka being produced, which is a good one, very good, yeah.
That's right. So the other thing, other aspect of it is that, the average speed in big cities, Colombo and I think Kandy, it's worse. Average speed is like, 15 to 22 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
Of the vehicle. So, while sitting in traffic, you are burning, a huge amount of oil unnecessarily. That's
Quite
because
right.
of the congestion once again.
Yeah. No. All this is 100% true or 200% true. You see, we have been talking about improving the percentage done by public transport. Just talk. For years, we have been talking about it. Leaving aside this, going for electric, just making that conversion. Why are there 3 million three-wheelers on the road? That is because there are no reasonable bus service or train service.
Yeah.
You see, that definitely has to be done. But now we have gained an opportunity because we have the EVs coming in. So we'll make a saving both ways, you see. Make the transport more efficient, as well as make the transport less dependent on oil. All that is possible. But Chula, if you like, I'll arrange for another lecture, not by me, by Professor Sugat Das.
Oh, that will be a good one
Yeah.
if you communicate, because actually public transport is a completely shambles, it's real shambles.
Yeah.
And that's
True.
why all this congestion and also having no road discipline is a major cause for poor public transport.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And those two things can be addressed separately. I think it's good if Professor Sugatapal, if you contact him, we will give a window for him to talk.
Yeah.
It is a good time to talk about things because there's not much opposition from the politicians. Yeah. Thank you so much. Any other questions? I think all my request is to please keep in the loop. We want to get this taking forward, do what we can do to promote a company or promote a collaboration or whatever the opportunity within the next 3 to 6 months, so that we get this going from a bottom-up approach, not depending on the politicians, so that the people will be demanding.
That is the key.
That is the key. So the people will be demanding this, and then they'll have to provide it. That's how it will go. Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, Chula. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for talking. I will send the video around, and then we'll take it from there, and also invite anybody to join if they can. Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Parakrama. Dharmi and Jiva and everybody else from Pinto, they're all here. And also Basil is also here. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Chula. Good night.
Night.